and welcome back to the Women's Biz Tribe Success Summit. We've been having so many amazing speakers, and we have another one coming up. Her name is Vanja Beric. And for those of you who are just tuning in, that is totally fine. We have 44 different speakers. So if you've missed some, you can just go back and rewatch those in your own time. Definitely get a pen in hand, because I tell you what, I've been taking notes. There've been so many gems of wisdom coming out with our speakers. And so I'd love to introduce you to Vanja. She came from a war-torn country, actually, as a refugee to Australia. She's a fellow Aussie now with me. And she did that when she was only 11 years old. And she has certainly experienced number of hardships, abuse, and certainly a lot of limiting beliefs that she'll be able to tell you about today. She's now a counsellor, and she's able to help others build on their own self-belief, which is just so important. She's an entrepreneur who wants to empower women that know whatever their past is, right? They're able to choose their own future moving forward. And I absolutely love that. I love the principle that, you know, any wound that you had can be actually turned into a superpower in some way, that it's not going to then, you know, it can be a driving force, probably like you, Vanja, becoming a counsellor rather than, you know, having something that anchors you down. So welcome to the summit, Vanja.
Thank you so much for having me on. And yes, 100% what you've said. Our whatever happened in our life, it drove us to where we are today. And you know, let's use that to then take us even further.
Absolutely. So let's talk about the topic of self-belief. What is self-belief?
Yeah. Have you ever been, or anyone listening, in a situation where you wanted something, but it kind of seemed out of reach, whether it was a new business venture or your relationship or health or whatever it is, just something seemed out of reach. You know, there were steps to take, but there was something stopping you. Now, if the answer to that is yes, think about if you were able to do this thing or pursue this thing, but nobody knew about it. So in some way, you could get away with doing this thing and nobody knows who you are, kind of like a pseudonym. When you're writing a book, would that make it easier? Would that make it easier to take the steps that you need to take you wherever you wanted to go? You know, whether it's going into a new relationship, leaving an old one, going into something with business, scaling your business. And that's my camera's a little tilted, I just realized. The reason why it would be easier to do it with nobody else is watching. It's because of judgment, because we are so afraid of other people's judgment. We feel like we could do anything if we had the support. And sometimes, you know, the people that are in our life or that we feel like will judge us, you know, may have nothing to do with our life. And this is where self-belief comes in. Self-belief is about having belief in yourself, that you can handle a situation. You feel so strongly rooted in where you're going, where you are, that you have absolutely no fear, and any judgment washes off of you. You feel so strong in where you are. And if the wind blows either way, you don't get swayed. And that's why it's so important to have it, whether we're in business, whether we're in relationship, parents, in whatever aspect. It's believing that you are worthy of whatever it is you're pursuing. It's believing that you are enough. It's believing that you're creating a life based on your own wants and needs, and not based on what other people or society have put on you. Because oftentimes, and I hear this so often with my clients, is, you know, they're 30, 40, 50 years old, and it doesn't matter, you know, and I've lived a life, you know, I've done this and this and this and this, and I've done it according to other people's rules. And, you know, at the end of that, people expect kind of happiness, you know, like, well, I've done my education, I've gotten married, I've had my kids, like I've done all the things that needed to happen. Where's my happiness? And then when it doesn't happen, they feel lost.
So, yes, exactly. You've got the tick list, someone else's tick list, and once you get to the end of the tick list, it's kind of like going, okay, well, it doesn't feel like nirvana for me. Like it's kind of like I'm still not fulfilled, right? And often it's at that moment go, oh my gosh, it's sometimes even the first time for a very long time what you've actually thought of. What would you actually like in your life? What would you like, love of yourself? That ability to do that though is got to be strongly linked to the experiences you've had in your past, right? So you'll be dealing in counseling with people who've had a lot of trauma, a lot of life experience when the response when they tried it last time or the time before was negative. And
Yes.
So it must be so challenging then to overcome the negative and then make it, we all love saying, isn't it great if you can turn a wound into a superpower or make it your strength and rewrite the narrative in your mind, but it is really challenging, right? And I know definitely if you're from your background, that must have been so hard that it's like, when people say just have more self-belief, it's not that easy, is it?
No, yes, absolutely. And it is, I've always felt, up until I started my own counseling, I've always felt like I wasn't on the same level or the same playing field as everyone else, because the trauma had such an impact on me. And I was living with so many side effects. It felt like we were in a race, but, I was 10 meters behind everyone, and I was, we were all running the same race. And, there's all these people behind, and we're like, why are we not catching up? Why are we not as successful? Why are we not? And it's our own sabotage. It's our own, even just our own ability, depending on how much trauma you had, our own ability to concentrate. Even that, there's so much research that shows that, trauma impacts memory, concentration, sleep, and all of these things. And of course, these are the things that the foundations that you need to build a business, really, or to build even a good relationship. Because if you don't have those things, you can't, it's kind of like you can't move forward. You can't build anything if you're always tired, if you're always in a flight or freeze mode. So if always adrenaline is rushing through you. So 100%, that's why it's so important that, when we talk about, as you said, like positive thinking, turning up, a trauma into a superpower, whatever it is, and there's so much help out there, and there's so much, knowledge and information out there. And when we try it, we're like, well, why isn't it working for me? And the reason why is because there is all that trauma and all that pain underneath. And you have had, chances are, that negative talk and those negative beliefs about who you can and can't be, it started out when you were a small child. So this is, again, 20, 30, 50 years of talking this way. And now we're supposed to change it like that. And, when you put it in perspective, we can understand why, it doesn't work for us. So it's not so successful. And one of the things that if you look at kind of any type of entrepreneur that, is kind of, at their highest, we're talking about, Tony Robbins, Lewis Howes, Jay Shetty, whoever it is that you look up to, if you hear them speak, chances are they will at some point say that they've gone through and healed their own trauma, healed their own whatever it is that was holding them back. Because when you do that, then you're not the same level, you're the same playing field. You're not starting behind everyone else. You're running now the same race as everyone else. And now you can start changing your thoughts. And now you can, build your habits of getting up 5 o'clock in the morning or whatever those success habits are.
Exactly. Because otherwise you're always what do you say? You're not in the same playing field, but that's right. You're always feeling like it. You must just feel like you're drowning, or you're sort of, you know, lagging so far behind when everyone else is just going ahead, and you haven't resolved those issues. Then you're never going to catch up. So it is so exhausting. It's such a compounding problem, right? Because on one bit you want to have self-belief, but because you don't have the self-belief because of the trauma, and then the trauma's got its own complexities. That's right. It's not a surprise that it is just so challenging and not as easy as just, you know, saying some positive words, or, you know, trying better tomorrow. So how do you help people then build their power, build their ability to be able to undo those tracks? So, you know, if I'm imagining those, you know, like a big tractor or something, it's like been putting those tracks down, layer, and then therefore we have to do something professionally to be able to, you know, you can't just say, oh, it's going to be different tomorrow, because your default would then just fall straight back into that, right? It'd have to be automatic. And so how do you help people change the automatic to then, you know, become a new story? How long does that take? Is it different for everybody? How do you approach that with people?
Yeah, 100%. It's kind of like it is, you know, I guess the same thing as building a business, or really building a relationship or anything. It is different for everyone. It is about, you know, I love when my clients, you know, and it is sad, you know, that we have to come to this, but when they feel like they're at rock bottom and they're ready to roll up their sleeves, they're like, I have nothing to lose. Like, I've tried everything else. I couldn't be more miserable than I am, so I'm just going to do whatever it takes. And of course, you know, that gumption and that power behind that, you can see massive transformations. And the work is, you know, it's the same as doing the work of, you know, whether it's affirmations or positive thinking or anything like that. You know, it's over time, and it never stops, as it never should, because the moment we stop growing, we're dead. So, you know, it's something that's over time, but those core foundations, to build strong foundations, to heal those wounds, it can happen pretty quickly. You know, if you're ready to do the work and you're ready to let go, it can happen pretty quickly. You know, I've had clients within, you know, a couple of months already, their life starting to change. And once they start, and people get often fear, because, you know, your life does start to change, but it kind of starts to change by default, because you start attracting different type of people in your life. You start attracting different opportunities. What you know, before you liked, or what you before tolerated, you're like, I don't have time for this. My time is better spent, you know, with my children, or, you know, building something, or being creative. I don't have time for someone to tell me that I'm not good enough, or whatever it is. So, you know, we can work on a one-on-one capacity, or we can work in a group. I have a course coming out in about 5 weeks. And we build that self-belief in someone, to let go of judgment, to let go of people pleasing, you know, that fear of not being good enough. And that's for 6 weeks, you know, but it's intense. It's you have the online modules, and then you have group sessions with me. And, you know, it can be, you know, if you're ready to roll up your sleeves, but there's a whole group of people. If you fall, if you stumble, there's a whole group of people waiting for you, supporting you. And, you know, it doesn't feel so big anymore.
Yeah, and that's so important. Absolutely. You need to surround yourself with people who are going to, you know, cushion you, I suppose, support you, cheer you on, but be there and understand and have no judgment. So important, and all the best for your course. I think that is just so exciting and so necessary. I think it's sort of, to me, it's coming through in this conversation. It's waiting for two things. I feel that one of it is belief. You know, before they didn't believe that things were going to change. So even though you say, I'd like them to, I want them to, I need them to, you don't really believe. And so when you don't believe it, then you'll never achieve it. So you actually go back to the default very quickly. And then that other factor, I think, was happening in that conversation too, of you've actually got to change the barometer there of there's got to be some kind of urgency of saying, I've had enough, or it's really bad, or it's just like no more. And it's like this kickstart, which can then fuel, it can be negative, even worse, right? But we don't want to go there today. We want to, it's enough to go, all right, now's the time. There's never going to be a better time. I'm going to do it. I'm going to just book into Vanya's course. I'm going to go, right, 6 weeks. I can do 6 weeks. I can make it happen. And then through that process, even if they don't believe at the beginning, when they get some early wins, if you like, you get some evidence that things are going well, then it encourages you to go, maybe I can overcome. Fantastic. And with professional guidance, that's what you need, so it's a positive experience. So how did you go about sort of improving your own self-belief? What sort of processes did you use over the last decade or so for you, as you can obviously get trained to do things professionally with other people, but often things are harder for ourselves, right? Because otherwise when we're actually doing our profession, it's like, well, that's just what I do, and that's theory, and there's basic ways you do things, principles and techniques. Whereas for yourself, it's very easy to go, oh yeah, that's what I should do, but I haven't done it. So how did you go about that process?
Yes. So what I do at the moment, and as we talked about, I've had trauma, I've had war, I've had abuse. So there was 100%, going through that healing process and going to therapy and working everything out. And now, decade or so, couple of decades past, that trauma really doesn't affect me as much. Sometimes it comes out in small pieces, and the way that I work through it now, and it's also, so once we sort of at the end of that 6 weeks, is then what I teach my clients, that as I said, the work never stops, but then how do you keep doing? You don't want to have me around for the rest of your life. So how do you do your own work? And it's about creating that awareness, and it's about that reflection. So every time when I get angry, or something happens where even when things go my way, but even when things don't go my way, it's about reflection. So I don't want to hit rock bottom to know something needs to change. It's kind of when that taps on the shoulder, I'm already paying attention, going, okay, so what about that situation makes me, feel that way, or makes me think I need to act that way, or makes me feel like that's the way to be heard? What about that situation was so successful for me? What did I do there? What did I think? What were my actions before that? What were my actions after that to make that one successful and maybe this one not? Whether it's a high or, so if we have the high and a low, every time we hit that high and a low is a point for us to reflect and think about what was the good, what was the bad. And I take other people out of the equation. So, this Success Summit, it's great. I've been listening and it's been absolutely amazing. But when I reflect on this, I'm going to think about, and this is no judgment, this is pure exploration. Okay, so this went really well. What did go so well? What were my prep work before that? Why do I think, why does this, talking about this feel so good? And then, and thinking about those points and how can I replicate them then in the next summit?
Yes.
But also when things don't go well, why didn't they go well? What was I trying to, when I was launching this course, there was so many things that went wrong. And, I kept reflecting, what was it that, that wasn't going right? And it was me trying to rush things and not give them time to develop themselves, or feel like, if I don't do it today, then, it's never going to happen, and those kind of things, putting pressures. And then that meant something else to me. And then that meant something else to me, until we come to those core values, core beliefs, core feelings. And I guess that's where the gold is.
Yeah. It's actually just project managing it, rather than trying to have those extreme statements, I suppose. And that's what happens, isn't it? When something is emotional to us and you put too much weight on it, you suddenly go, yeah, that's right, I'll never do it. It'll never work for me. Those sorts of extreme blanket statements, as opposed to if it was just a project, you go, right, it's going to take this period of time, I'm going to do it in these installments. I've got a bit of buffer if something went wrong, bit of contingency. Suddenly it's it's quite straightforward. You throw some emotion in it, and you throw some triggers that happen which you possibly might not be aware of, and it's like, whoa, that was suddenly, if I equate that to even like writing a book, for example. I had a lady on earlier on who said, I think her book took 7 years or something, because something must have happened that it just went, it's just not going to happen, and that and 7 years later it's like, all right, maybe it will, and I'll just get back into it. And all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh. And then you'll get someone else go, oh yeah, I could have done that in three months. You go, well, you obviously don't have any blocks. Oh my goodness. So this whole topic of self-belief, if we have a future generation, your heart as a counsellor must be that, wouldn't it be great if particularly our young girls come, have their late teenage years and early 20s, and they're just full of self-belief,
Mm-hmm.
Why will that be just so much more amazing? Like, it's obvious that it would be, but what do you see? Because you'll see people who have success stories and how much it transforms their life. Describe that from your professional perspective.
Yeah, this is something that I have so much passion and love for. When we look at, I guess the evolution of people, and even recent evolution and the next generation, we sometimes perceive them as, sort of in a negative light. But one of the things that we can say, for the generation, I guess that, that's out there now, is they have so much awareness, and they have so much love and so much acceptance and so much, and they're not afraid to, speak their truth. And of course, they go through their own struggles. Everybody does. And that is what I think, having, if we can install self-belief within our children, and as you said, within our girls, we can have, the next generation will be a bigger evolution, even more love, even more acceptance. We don't have to fight wars. We don't have to, there's this, me coming from a war background, and thinking about it now, and the wars that are happening in the world now, what is it about? What makes, that was something that I've always thought about, even in my teenage years, before I even started, going to therapy, or, obviously studying for it, is what makes, a person pick up a gun and shoot someone, or torture someone, or rape, or, all of these, tragedies that come with the war. And I feel like the next generation, they're more about love as opposed to possession or ego, or, they don't have so much lack. The one thing, again, as I said, I thought about what makes a person do that, what makes a person do those horrible things, that one day they were your neighbor, and then the next day, all of a sudden, we believe in different things, and I'm your enemy.
Yeah, crazy.
And then that's exactly, that is what happens. That's what happens in the country that I was in, and that's what happens in war. Like, someone tells us that our beliefs don't matter in that point, and then so we're happy, and then tomorrow it tells us that it does matter, and then we start fighting, and it is a neighbor against neighbor, friend against friend. And I think one of the things what I've come to a conclusion with is, it's obviously fear, but it's also a lot of these people grew up with, no love in their life, no sense of self, not, so it's very easy to be persuaded to go one way or the other way. So not having that belief in themselves, that foundation. So if I tell you, this type of person is bad, and if I talk about it enough, you'll start believing.
Mm-hmm.
So building that, instilling that self-belief in our children so they can question, so they can be curious and feel like have freedom to be curious and be love and, what we want in the world is, to me, that is the most important thing, because that is, I'm thinking of, those beauty pageants when the people ask them, what do you most want in the world? World peace. That, that to me is where world peace, how we get world peace.
That's how we get world peace. Well, it is one little human at a time who actually, are evolving into someone who just, does desire that, want that, believe it's possible, treat people respectfully, not be judgmental and hyper opinionated on other people's views. And I agree with you, Vanya. I think, I've even noticed a big generational shift. I've got 5 adult children, and 4 of them are sort of millennials, and one of them is Gen Z, and she's quite different. It's a lot more on, like, quite a stark change in just the respect for every person individually, and how you shouldn't judge anyone, and that we've all got to be very tolerant and very anti-war and very, bigger on just love. And I found it, some bits I found confronting, because we've got such firm boundaries, and it is confronting when we kind of go, just try and keep the peace or be a little bit more understanding. And it has really picked up my thoughts on things, because I then think, well, good on her for having really solid beliefs and really strong boundaries on things, and they're actually willing to back. And it's not just one daughter. Like, I watch with her friends, the conversations they have and things like that. I think it's actually really wonderful, but it's also then, that's right, you've got to hope that the world will evolve in that way, and that's all we can do, isn't it? Have these kind of open conversations and be pouring that love into our next generation. So what an interesting conversation today. Thank you for being one of our summit speakers. It's been really great. We haven't delved into the topic of self-belief, and I tell you what, it's essential. It's, it's one of those, do you actually sort of just start focusing in? I think we should, because that's right. If you have belief in your own abilities and self without, that causing any adverse harm of anyone else, oh my goodness, you can make the impossible possible in your world, right? And it just brings great freedom and great joy. And that's what we want for all of us. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me on. I love this conversation.
You are right in your element. Fantastic. Well, I'll hopefully see you at our next summit. We'll have another beautiful topic. I'll have to start thinking, what else would I like to talk about with Vanya? We're unlimited there. All righty. Thank you so much. Those delegates listening in, we will have another speaker very, very soon. Ladies, are you dreaming big enough? I want you to dream big and act bigger. You see, I want to have power. I want to be empowered. Suddenly, being empowered is a more positive word, because I want to make sure that I know my own values, my boundaries. I know what I want to achieve in life. Visible and invisible barriers are only a problem if you accept them as such. So a woman with a big dream also needs to have a plan, because without a plan, that dream is just a wish.
I love her confidence, I love her charisma, and her positivity and her brightness and her color and her lessons about life. As a woman who's been through so much, it was really, really inspiring and really interesting.
I had 4 kids in 2 years. I wanted to be a businesswoman. I had no money. I had to think, how is this dream going to happen? If you actually start believing if something's important to you, just back yourself. Back yourself despite what other people say. Successful people are not held back by what other people say.
I would recommend that for everybody, because everybody should have a dream and everybody should back themselves. So I think she's awesome.
Even when it feels like everything's not going to work, they go, you know what? I'm going to make sure that this does work. I'm going to be positive despite, because it brings energy, it brings opportunity. And as soon as you actually get half glass empty, your vision will start failing. I encourage you to start making your dreams a reality in business and in life. Thank you.